Part 11. 9 Generations of Villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 101. There is a deviation between the memory and the scene in front of her. Xuanhuan I remembered it clearly. After she brought Zhang Chen here, the two of them laughed and talked happily, but Zhang Chen never asked him the two questions: do you believe in fate, and what will you do if someone wants to kill me? In any case, she was still happy. After all, although there was a deviation, she still enjoyed this kind of master-disciple time and even hoped that it would continue. Well, after waking up, I should practice peeling spiritual fruits. Would it look better to peel with a spiritual sword? She thought again. In her thoughts, the picture has changed, and it has been several years later. Diamond Suit. Juyan Sect. Zhufeng has only been established for a few years, and the talents are declining and there are many affairs. In the picture, Xuanhuan works hard every day, often goes out, and is exhausted. She became more serious than usual, no longer smiled, and her eyes were a little indifferent, giving people a feeling of numbness. At this time, Lin Mubai and Qingning had already become disciples. Lin Mubai turned a deaf ear to the outside world and only read the books of sages. Young Qingning followed Zhang Chen every day, like a follower. One day, Qingning, senior brother wants you to do me a favor. Zhang Chen touched Qingning's head and said. Okay, young Qingning agreed readily. Zhang Chen squatted down and said seriously, don't agree yet, because this matter is a bit dangerous. If you don't want to, you can refuse. Young Qingning nodded. I need you to go to the Red Flame Sea. There is a black charcoal tree in the center of the sea. Only people with great luck can see it. Senior brother hopes you can scrape some charcoal ash back. Zhang Chen stated his purpose. Senior brother, will you go with me? Young Qingning looked forward to it. Zhang Chen shook his head and said, I can't go. If I go to that tree, I will hide. You can't even tell others about this. You can only go by yourself. Oh, young Qingning nodded. Not long after, Qingning left the sect alone and went to the Red Flame Sea. At that time, she was only 10 years old, and her cultivation level was only at the lower 4th realm. And if the flames in the Sea of Fire erupted, even the upper 4th realm cultivators would be swallowed up instantly. Seeing this scene, Xuanhuan frowned slightly. The next scene was exactly the same as she remembered. The young Qingning left the sect and had not returned for a long time. After checking the blood scroll, she knew that Qingning had gone to the Sea of Fire. Realizing the danger of the matter, she took Zhang Chen and several elders from the 9 peaks to the Sea of Fire to look for her. When everyone found Qingning, the latter was already dying and fainted on the Sea of Fire. Her petite body was burned in many places, and her originally fair and tender skin was covered with a layer of black ash. Even so, Qingning was still holding on to something tightly. Xuanhuan hurriedly rescued Qingning. But the first thing Qingning did when she woke up was to force herself to run towards Zhang Chen. Big brother, Qingning has brought back what you wanted. Although it was difficult for her to even stand, the young Qingning was still excited. Upon hearing this, everyone was in disbelief, and Xuanhuan almost fainted from anger. There have long been rumors that Zhang Chen used Qingning as a tool and used the latter's luck to obtain all kinds of natural treasures. Xuanhuan did not believe this. First of all, there was no real evidence, and secondly, she was unwilling to believe that Zhang Chen, who had done nothing wrong recently, would be so shameless. But it was Qingning's words that confirmed Zhang Chen's guilt. What did you ask Qingning to get? Even so, Xuanhuan still asked. Zhang Chen did not reply. He just squatted down, touched Qingning's head with a distressed look, and then said thank you. The young Qingning smiled. But Xuanhuan and the other elders of Zhufeng could not suppress their anger. After returning to the sect, Zhang Chen was punished to face the wall for 100 days. Originally, With his evil deeds, it would not be too much to be thrown into the sect prison, but the young Qingning hugged Jiang Chen tightly and wanted to follow him even if he was punished. Helplessly, Xiao Hong'ai had to punish him slightly and warn him severely. That night, as a bystander, Xiao Hong'ai looked at the two people, one big and one small, leaning against each other in front of the facing the wall monument and sighed faintly. She remembered it clearly. After that, Jiang Chen returned to his original nature, making big and small mistakes continuously, until she abolished his Yuan Dan. He still refused to change despite repeated teachings. Slowly walking forward, Xiao Hong'ai sat down beside Jiang Chen, hugging her knees. Knowing that Jiang Chen couldn't hear her words, she still said, "Your sin is my sin. In reality, I only scolded you harshly. Now I think that as a master, I also need to face the wall and reflect on my mistakes." In fact, the master has always been puzzled. You are the only son of the Zhang family. What do you want? Why let young Qingning take risks? Although you are bad, you have never hurt young Qingning before. What is it that makes you so cold-blooded? She whispered again. Jiang Chen couldn't hear, so he naturally didn't reply. Young Qingning woke up from a deep sleep, but asked curiously, "Big brother, what is that charcoal tree? It's obviously all black charcoal, but it's so hot." "Did you let the master take the charcoal ash?" Jiang Chen asked back. "Carbon ash? What carbon ash?" Xiao Hong'ai was confused. This was the second time she noticed something was wrong. "Yes, I put it in master's tea. The charcoal ash is so magical, master seemed to be blind and drank it directly." Young Qingning nodded. After a long silence, she continued, "Big brother, I heard master crying when I left. I have never seen master cry. Did we really make a mistake?" Jiang Chen did not reply directly, but asked the young Qingning to go back, wanting to be alone. Qingning was reluctant, but she still walked away, looking back every few steps. Then, Jiang Chen smiled with satisfaction, "It's good that master is fine, but I did let Qingning take risks this time, and I feel guilty." Hearing this, Xiao Hong'ai's beautiful eyes opened suddenly, and there seemed to be thunder in her mind. She is fine? What does it mean? Jiang Chen's smile caught her eyes, making her even more panicked. Because that smile was not a smile of conspiracy, but a kind of comfort, a kind of relief. Xiao Hong'ai did remember. After punishing Jiang Chen, Qingning came to her. She also remembered that when Qingning brought tea, she did drink the tea. But she is a cultivator of the upper fourth realm. If there is the so-called carbon ash in the tea, she can't have not noticed it. It's even more impossible to drink it directly. Unless. Suddenly, Xiao Hong'ai remembered a rumor. Before the formation of the Sea of Red Flames, it is said that a phoenix had stayed there. The phoenix is a divine bird that can only live on the phoenix tree. And the phoenix tree can only be seen by people with great luck. That is not a carbon tree, but a burnt phoenix tree. The so-called carbon ash is actually the burnt phoenix bark. She was shocked. Looking straight at Jiang Chen, she continued to analyze, "Did you know that I was an acquired phoenix body at that time? Did you know that I had been overworked during that period and had begun to be eaten by the phoenix blood? And the phoenix tree is the best spiritual treasure to suppress the phoenix blood. Yes, this is the only possibility." Although I don't know why Jiang Chen knew this, only this conclusion can explain everything. She had never thought about this before. Because at that time, she had not told Jiang Chen and other disciples that she was an acquired phoenix body. During that time, she was indeed eaten by the phoenix blood. After recovering, she thought that she suppressed it with her cultivation, but she never thought that the truth was so. So, Jiang Chen asked Qingning to take risks, not for himself, but for her? As a master, she was not grateful, but she also severely reprimanded and punished Jiang Chen? I. At this moment, Xuanhuan was completely panicked. Although she kept reminding herself that this was not reality, she felt that everything was real and terrible. And the truth was like a big hand, tearing her heart apart in an instant. She finally understood. The reason why Zhang Chen was unwilling to tell the truth must be that he knew that she would not agree to let Qingning take risks. Even if he told her afterwards, it would only make her fall into deep self-blame. This disciple, who she thought was hard to change his nature, did everything this time for her. Emotions such as self-blame and guilt surged in her heart. Xuanhuan wanted to endure it, but she cried out after all. She turned her back to Zhang Chen and squatted on the ground with her face covered. Even though she knew that Zhang Chen could not see her, she was still pretending to be strong. She wanted to apologize to Zhang Chen, but she was already crying. After crying, she laughed again and became happier than ever. At this moment, in addition to self-blame, she wanted to tell everyone more. At least in this matter, Zhang Chen was not wrong. She was wrong. Her apprentice was not as bad as she said. Okay, thief god. This time, you won without any action. Zhang Chen's voice sounded again. This made Xuanhuan stunned again. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 102. What does it mean that God wins? Xuanhuan looked confused. She didn't understand the meaning of the sentence, but she remembered it firmly in her heart. She thought that perhaps only by returning to reality and asking Zhang Chen could the mystery be solved. But soon, she understood. Since this incident, Zhang Chen's evil deeds have appeared frequently, and there is solid evidence. But without exception, all are coincidences. The underwear of a female disciple of Zhufeng was lost, and Zhang Chen happened to pick it up. As soon as he picked it up, he happened to be caught by the person involved. Young Qingning was extremely dependent on Zhang Chen. In order to make Zhang Chen happy, she went in and out of danger many times. But every time she came back and gave the items to Zhang Chen, there would be witnesses. Lin Mubai couldn't stand it and scolded Zhang Chen many times. Every time, Zhang Chen wanted to explain patiently, but every time, before he had time to open his mouth, there were younger brothers who wanted to win his favor and punched and kicked Lin Mubai. Even if Zhang Chen reprimanded them severely afterwards, the next time, these little brothers would still do their own thing. Afterwards, they said that it was too irritating and they could not restrain themselves at all. Undoubtedly, these evil deeds were all blamed on Zhang Chen. Seeing this situation, Xuanhuan felt distressed. She finally understood. This heaven seemed to be targeting her apprentice. She began to cry. She cried for Zhang Chen's experience and for her own distrust. She clearly said that as long as Zhang Chen was on the right path, she would always believe in him. She clearly said that as long as Zhang Chen was kind, the two of them would be master and apprentice and would never leave each other. But the result? As a master, she repeatedly made mistakes. In the face of many iron evidences, like others, she repeatedly misunderstood Zhang Chen and kept punishing him. This situation lasted for several years. During this period, Mu Kui and Zhang Lianyu became his disciples one after another. Juyan sect, Danfan. Zhang Chen rarely comes here, because the elders and disciples of Danfan all hate him. But this time, he came. Even though he suffered from cold eyes, he still used his few merits to exchange for the opportunity to personally refine the elixir in the alchemy room. In the narrow and hot alchemy room, Zhang Chen was studying the elixir formula. Xuanhuan didn't know why he came here, but just stood quietly beside Zhang Chen. Her beautiful eyes were red and swollen because of crying, and her face was full of heartache. Although she was deeply trapped in self-blame, she was more confused. The memory deviation was getting bigger and bigger. She kept noticing that something was wrong, and she didn't even have any memory about many things. She was even more aware. The eldest disciple in front of her was completely different from Zhang Chen in reality. Obviously, the appearance was the same, but the difference was like day and night, making it difficult for people to associate them together. All this made her feel unreal. But every time she resisted and didn't want to believe, she could clearly feel Zhang Chen's emotional changes. She could feel Zhang Chen's good heart, as well as his loss and sadness, and the indescribable heartache when he was punished by herself in the picture. Everything was so real and terrible. Just like it really happened. Xuanhuan raised her head and looked upward. She was clearly in the alchemy room, but her sight could pass through the stone wall of the alchemy room, through the mountains of Danfan, and look directly at the sky. First life. In the sky, the three golden characters were still there, and they were even more dazzling. The sword-like golden light that was emitted seemed to be able to penetrate everything in the world and penetrate people's hearts. When she first saw these golden characters, Xuanhuan was extremely confused. But at this moment, her beautiful eyes opened sharply. Although she felt it was unbelievable, although she felt it was horrifying, although she felt that only a fool would make such an association. But she still burst into tears instantly. This was not the previous life. Because if it was so, the golden characters would not be marked with the number first life. With a choking cry, she spent a long time before finally choking out, "Disciple, how many lives have you experienced?" Zhang Chen could not hear this. Although he could not hear it, he sighed, "This pill can only be made by a 5th-grade alchemist, and it also requires ordinary alchemy fire, which is a bit troublesome. But with my talent, it is not a big problem." Fire turbidity pill? Xuanhuan was stunned again when she heard this name. She knew that this fire turbidity pill was made for Zhang Lianyu, but she never knew that her eldest disciple could make pills. Then, Zhang Chen began to study the alchemy book without sleep and forget about food. He fainted due to severe mental overdraft, and was burned when he went to the underground of Danfan to obtain alchemy fire. During this period, Xuanhuan remained silent. She had no memory of this, and finally understood that Zhang Chen was refining the fire turbidity pill for Zhang Lianyu. She guessed. This matter may not have a good ending, because it has always been like this. But she did not stop it. In addition to knowing that it was useless to stop him, the more important reason was, as a master, she could not prevent Zhang Chen from taking the right path, and could not stop Zhang Chen from caring for his junior brothers and sisters. Even though she knew that Zhang Chen was exhausted physically and mentally after repeated misunderstandings. Even though she was heartbroken at this moment, she still couldn't say the word give up. Because, isn't this her only request to Zhang Chen? I don't know how long it took. Haha. It's done, Zhang Chen laughed heartily. He put away the pill that had just come out of the cauldron, and quickly left the alchemy room and left the alchemy peak. Xuanhuan followed him. But just as he was about to leave, he heard whispers behind him. "Elder Ma, Zhang Chen has a good talent for alchemy." "Humph, so what if he is good? He is just a scum of the sect after all." "That's true, but there is no need for you to tamper with the alchemy fire and let it dissipate automatically. Such a scum is not worthy of alchemy. I am also considering the sect. If he really got the alchemy fire, wouldn't he use it to make poison pills every day? So that's how it is. Elder Ma is prepared for a rainy day, which is admirable." Hearing this, Xuanhuan's body stiffened. She knew that Ma Wu had a lot of opinions about Zhang Chen, but she didn't expect it to go to such a point. In this way, if there is another misunderstanding, Zhang Chen's alchemy fire will dissipate on its own, and it may be difficult to prove his innocence. After all, what kind of alchemist is he without the alchemy fire? Her guess was soon verified. In the Zhufenyang Xiao Palace, Zhang Chen was caught for peeping at Zhang Lianyu bathing. Seeing that he was accused by everyone, Xuanhuan was struck by lightning. The memory overlapped with the scene in front of her, but it was a little different. She clearly remembered that Zhang Chen confessed his guilt readily. But the white-clothed Zhang Chen in front of her kept explaining. But what's the use of explaining? Without Danhuo, he can't be an alchemist. Without Huazudan, he can't prove his innocence. This is another iron evidence. And this time, the one who punished Zhang Chen the most because of the iron evidence was herself. It was obviously her who destroyed Zhang Chen's Yuandan, and it was obviously she who misunderstood Zhang Chen, but she acted heartbroken, like a victim. Zhang Chen fell to the ground and fainted, and no one cared about him. She, the master who had spoken out of turn again, was comforted by many elders and disciples. All this made Xuanhuan feel for the first time. Sin. This god is targeting his apprentice. Ma Wu, Li Faju and other righteous men are also targeting their apprentices. She, the master. Not only did she not help Zhang Chen to shelter from the wind and rain, and did not choose to believe, but she also personally stabbed Zhang Chen's already broken heart with a deep knife. Such a sin is even heavier than that of others. It was raining heavily outside the hall, and thunder was heard frequently in the clouds. Xuanhuan smiled palely. She was always unconfident. Whenever her apprentice made a mistake, she would always ask others if it was her fault as a master. At this moment, she finally got the answer. She was not only derelict in her duty, but also carried a sin. She was not even worthy. She was not worthy of hearing Zhang Chen call her master. Disciple, give up. After a desperate smile, Xuanhuan whispered softly, I am not worthy of being a master, and this world is not worthy of it. It is not worthy of letting you be kind. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 103. Xuanhuan hoped that Zhang Chen would give up. Because if one has a good heart and walks the right path, but what he gets in return is the injustice of this world, then why should he be wronged? But Zhang Chen did not give up. He was still trying to gain recognition from others. As a result, there was no change. Gradually, the conflict between Zhang Chen and Lin Mubai became irreconcilable. Qingning, who had always been close to him, was completely disappointed. Even the dull and honest Mu Kui was affected by many coincidences and resented Zhang Chen, the senior brother. Xuanhuan saw all this. Knowing that Zhang Chen could not hear her words, she still kept persuading him. But a bunch of fools, played around by this god. I am the only one in the world who is sober. One day, Zhang Chen whispered while lying on a smooth boulder with a spiritual grass in his mouth. His white clothes fluttered in the wind. His eyes were still shining. He still wanted to use his own strength to tear apart the darkness that enveloped the world. He didn't even resent others, but blamed everything on God. With pain in her heart, Xuanhuan cried again. She was proud of this disciple, but felt even more guilty for her distrust. Self-blame, guilt, sin, and other emotions almost overwhelmed her. But she still insisted. Because her disciple was still working hard, she, the master, didn't deserve to collapse. Since then, Zhang Chen became alone, and people avoided him wherever he went. Xuanhuan felt that her heart was bleeding. Especially when she heard herself in the picture constantly emphasizing Zhang Chen, don't let your master down. She not only felt it was harsh, but even wanted to strangle herself in the picture to death. Tear it apart. Disappointment. From the beginning to the end, wasn't it her as the master who really disappointed people? She began to hate herself, insult herself, and even scolded everyone. Because it is their stupidity, ignorance, and self-confidence that have caused Zhang Chen to be abandoned by his friends and relatives. Until Lin Feng became his disciple. Xiao Hong'ai had hope for the son of destiny. She thought that since Lin Feng was the son of destiny, he should not be affected by God, right? Maybe Lin Feng could see Zhang Chen's true nature and help Zhang Chen explain. But reality slapped her again. If Zhang Chen was abandoned by his friends and relatives before, then what awaited him after that was the bottomless abyss. And Lin Feng was the big hand that tried its best to drag Zhang Chen into the abyss. After Lin Feng became his disciple, Zhang Chen's evil deeds and their exaggerated speed increased, but he no longer needed his master to punish him. Because every time Zhang Chen did evil deeds, Lin Feng would appear at the first time. From the perspective of justice, he would impose various punishments. And after each punishment, the people around him would give Lin Feng a higher evaluation. Over time, not only Zhu Feng, but even the entire Zhuyan sect, regarded Zhang Chen as a rat crossing the street, and Lin Feng became the representative of justice. Seeing these scenes, Xiao Hong'ai's delicate body trembled with anger. She finally understood. Lin Feng, the son of destiny, is the protagonist of the world favored by heaven and earth. And Zhang Chen is just a stepping stone prepared by God for him. Precisely because he is a stepping stone, God does not allow Zhang Chen to turn over. Precisely because he is a stepping stone, whether it is her or other people, it is easy to feel disgusted. Zhang Chen is right. Except for himself, everyone is a fool, played around by God. She does not think that such an excuse can reduce her own sins and guilt. But for the first time, she understood the truth of this world. Time continues to pass. The appearance of Lin Feng made Zhu Feng resume laughter. But no one noticed that Zhang Chen's increasingly gloomy expression under the laughter. But even so, Zhang Chen still didn't give up. He knew he was hated, but he still accompanied Lin Mubai to sing for 1,000 days, and still tried to rebuild his relationship with Qingning. He also took good care of the dull and honest Mu Kui, and wanted to help Zhang Lianyu to eradicate the cold poison caused by the practice. Everything seemed to be moving in a good direction. Zhang Chen's reputation gradually improved, and his relationship with his junior brothers and sisters was also breaking the ice. Even Xiao Hong'ai in the picture was happy every day. But if you want to make people completely disappointed and desperate, you must first give them hope. This god is very good at playing with people's hearts. Zhang Chen, you beast! Lin Muibai's roar broke everyone's hope. Looking at the picture, Zhang Chen, who was holding the innate Taoist bone with blood still on his hand, looked stunned, and himself who came in time. Xiao Hong'ai felt a sharp pain in his heart again. Witnessing with her own eyes that her master, after abolishing Zhang Chen's cultivation and expelling him from the sect, actually hid and cried behind closed doors. For the first time, she felt she was really hypocritical. Seeing Zhang Chen being taken away by Chen Sheng, she also broke through many obstacles and wanted to follow Zhang Chen. But she was obviously in the upper fourth realm of cultivation, but she couldn't cross the chasm in front of her. She didn't wait by the chasm, but returned to the top of the dangerous peak, in front of the Hongyu Pavilion. Because this is home. Her and Zhang Chen's home. Zhang Chen had only been here once, but she could smell Zhang Chen's scent and feel Zhang Chen's warmth here. Sitting in front of the Hongyu Pavilion. Tears flowed uncontrollably, and in the haze of tears, she seemed to see the young man fishing by the pond again. Master, will you always believe in me? The young man turned his head and asked. I can't, Xiao Hong'ai replied. Why? Because I don't deserve it? Xiao Hong'ai didn't know how long she had stayed here. As if punishing her, the scene in front of her stopped changing and she could clearly feel the passage of time. During this period, she saw herself again. Every once in a while, the self in this world will come here, put down some spiritual fruits in the red jade pavilion, and then stand in the spiritual pool in a daze until the next day before leaving. Obviously. Even in this world, I still remember that this is her and Zhang Chen's home. But such an action made Xuanhuan's heart hurt even more. Because it was obviously her who caused this situation with her own hands. 4. Also obviously, both she and herself in the picture were waiting. Wait for Zhang Chen to show up here. This day. The self in the picture came again, and said to himself in an extremely sad voice, the Zhang family was destroyed. Hearing this, Xuanhuan suddenly raised his head. She didn't wait for Zhang Chen to come home, but she waited for the news that Zhang Chen's real home was destroyed. The guilt creeps in again. Although she also knew that as long as the ancestor of the Zhang family did not fall, the dynasty would not act easily. But the Zhang family sent Zhang Chen to the Julian sect just for protection. But she, the master, drove Zhang Chen back with her own hands, allowing Zhang Chen to witness the destruction of the Zhang family with his own eyes, and her own life was also at stake. Xuanhuan couldn't wait any longer. She left this place and began to search aimlessly in the central territory. She knows. If Zhang Chen survives by chance, he can only escape from the upper realm and go to the middle or lower realm to escape from the nose of the Empress and gain a chance of survival. The truth was what she thought. Although she did not find Zhang Chen, she learned from other monks that Zhang Chen was committing evil in the Hongduan Mountains. She breathed a sigh of relief and headed to the Hongduan Mountains. But by then, Zhang Chen had already left. She asked around again and learned that Zhang Chen appeared in Xuanhuan. But when he arrived, Zhang Chen left again. Not only that, whenever Zhang Chen appeared in a place, she would always miss him when she rushed to see him. Why? Why don't you let me see him? Do you want to punish me? Then at least let me accompany him through this life. I know I don't deserve it, but please. Xuanhuan looked up to the sky and cried. She cried so hard that her voice became hoarse. But as a result, nothing changed. She could only get some information from the discussions of other monks. Zhang Chen got acquainted with a witch from the Wandao demon section. The witch fell in love with her at first sight and began an almost pathological pursuit. The witch said that she and Zhang Chen were a perfect match and no one could separate them. She doesn't just say it, she also does it. She didn't care if Zhang Chen was good or bad, she only wanted to kill all Zhang Chen's enemies, even if that person was her master. After she learned about Zhang Chen's experience, she even went to Julian sect, hoping to kill all those who bullied Zhang Chen. Of course, that includes myself. Originally, Xuanhuan was extremely disgusted with this kind of demonic behavior. But after learning all this, after a few years, she finally left. She is very happy. Because in this world, there really is such a person who doesn't care about Zhang Chen's good or bad, but will never leave Zhang Chen. Unlike her, who often makes mistakes without realizing it. But the joy didn't last long. What the witch did harm Zhang Chen. Her behavior was also determined to be instigated by Zhang Chen. This aroused the anger of all forces. Not only did she, the master, say that she wanted to clean up the family, but other forces also pointed all their fingers at Zhang Chen and launched a crazy pursuit. Afterwards, Zhang Chen was defeated by Lin Feng and his former classmates, and he blew up his own spiritual sword and fled. The witch, in order to protect Zhang Chen, took the initiative to show up at Qi Yao Sword Pavilion. He abolished all his cultivation, surrendered and admitted all his crimes. Then died tragically under the rain of swords from the sky. I wanted to help him, but I didn't want to harm him. If this is his request, then I want to be a good person in my next life. Before she died, the witch said this. Before she died, she was still smiling. It is said that he smiled happily. And when she learned that Zhang Chen was alone again, Xuanhuan's heart hurt even more and her consciousness became trance-like. She frequently hallucinated, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. No one noticed that there was a figure in red everywhere in the vast central territory, constantly looking around. Her eyes were completely dull, just like the walking zombie who could only repeat one sentence. Zhang Chen, where are you? 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 104. Finally, Xuanhuan returned to the Red Pavilion. She searched almost all over the Central Territory, but could not find Zhang Chen. She instinctively returned to this place, her and Zhang Chen's home. Only here could she regain some sanity. Still sitting by the pond, in a daze, she saw the fishing boy again. The boy dropped the boom and turned to look at her. Those black eyes were full of resentment, and the cold and stern look made her shrink into a ball. I'm sorry, Xuanhuan, I apologized. While speaking, she wanted to blink and hold back the tears that were about to burst out, but she was worried that if she did this, the young man Zhang Chen in front of her would disappear again. She knew that something was wrong with her current state. The phoenix's blood-eating heart could no longer be suppressed due to repeated trauma to his mind, so he had frequent hallucinations. But even if it was an illusion, she still wanted to be by Zhang Chen's side. Tears rolled down, unable to stop no matter what. The young man in front of him still looked at him, still so hateful and so cold. Sudden. The young man narrowed his eyes and smiled, and said, Master, don't keep your word. If my disciple has nowhere to go one day, he will have to stay here. Xuanhuan was silent. Master, why don't you say anything? Didn't you say you want to wash and cook for me? The young man asked in confusion. With these words, Xuanhuan could no longer hold back the grief in her heart. She wailed. She was shaking. At this moment, she dropped all her defenses and abandoned all reason. She no longer pretends to be strong or serious. She seemed to have returned to her childhood. Then, like a young child, he cried unreasonably and willfully, Liar! You liar! I am willing to wash and cook for you for the rest of my life, but here you are. The voice fell. The breeze suddenly picked up. The young man in front of him suddenly disappeared, and only the fishing rod remained beside the empty pond. The crying stopped suddenly. Don't leave. You are not a liar, I am the biggest liar. Xuanhuan panicked. She stood up and looked around, stumbling along the way. She didn't know what she was looking for. She knew very well that the young man Zhang Chen was just an illusion caused by the blood of the phoenix eating his heart. But she just wouldn't give up. Suddenly, my heart hurt even more, my mind was showing signs of collapse, and my facial features became numb and indifferent. Holding back the pain that penetrated her soul, she was still searching everywhere. And just when she was about to enter the red pavilion. Squeak! The pavilion door was suddenly pushed open. A man wearing a white robe, slovenly appearance, slightly pale skin, but still smiling appeared. Xuanhuan was stunned. The familiar facial features made her unable to take her eyes away. Although her face was expressionless, endless tears filled her eyes again. Master, are you here? Zhang Chen smiled. A simple sentence made Xuanhuan wake up instantly. Although she was stunned, she still asked, Can you see me? Hey, Master. It doesn't look good when you cry, Zhang Chen said again. Hearing this, Xuanhuan quickly wiped away her tears. She buried her head and had thousands of words in her heart, but she didn't know how to say them. Master, remember. I said that if one day I have nowhere to go, I will stay here. Zhang Chen's voice sounded again. Yes, Xuanhuan nodded. The next second, she and Zhang Chen said in unison, because, this is our home. Master, you said you wanted to wash and cook for me. Zhang Chen smiled. The pain in my heart is gone. Xuanhuan smiled. Although there were still tears in his eyes, he smiled brightly. She raised her hand to touch Jiang Chen's cheek. Although she couldn't feel the temperature, and although she was worried that the Jiang Chen in front of her was still an illusion, she still smiled happily and said, "Then I won't be your wife." "Master, are you here to wash and cook for me, or are you here to kill me?" Jiang Chen suddenly stopped smiling. "Kill? How could I kill?" Xuanhuan quickly denied. But before she finished speaking, she felt like she was struck by lightning. She guessed something. She turned stiffly. Then, his pupils shrank. What caught her eye was a woman wearing a dazzling red dress holding a red whip. The woman's face was full of tears, her expression was heartbroken, and her eyes were full of disappointment. "Master!" Jiang Chen spoke again. "Don't call me master," the woman in red interrupted, "I have expelled you from my master. You are not my disciple, Xuanhuan." Hearing this, a flash of pain flashed across Jiang Chen's face. But it was only for a moment. He soon sighed and said, "If that's the case, then why didn't you destroy my blood slips? Don't deny it, because you were obviously prepared. If you didn't use the blood slips to check, how could you know my exact location?" The woman was silent. "Besides, since you are here to clean up the house, why are you crying?" "Master, you shouldn't have come." "Why, are you afraid of death?" The woman frowned and finally replied, "When things develop to this point, I may not be able to escape the ending of death. I was mentally prepared, but when I saw you crying so hard, I suddenly couldn't bear to die," Jiang Chen said with a pale smile. The woman obviously didn't understand this statement. Although she didn't understand, she still put away the red whip in her hand. She took a deep breath and stepped forward slowly. Looking directly at Jiang Chen, it took her a long time before she opened her red lips and said, "Jiang Chen, don't go anywhere, and I won't go back to Julian section. You and I will stay together in front of the Ruby Pavilion until we grow old together. Master is worried that if I leave here, I will go around doing evil again, right?" Jiang Chen was a little helpless. The woman was silent again. Suddenly, Jiang Chen took the woman into his arms and held her tightly. The woman wanted to break away, but she remembered something and gritted her teeth and became quiet. Leaning close to the woman's ear, Jiang Chen asked softly, "Master is thinking, if you can use beauty to stop me from doing evil, then that might be a good idea. As long as you are willing to look back, you are willing to do anything for my teacher." The woman did not deny it. "But I don't want to." Jiang Chen let go of the woman in his arms and came to the edge of the cliff. "Master, take care." After saying this, he tapped the ground with his toes, and his body rose into the air, floating in the direction of the upper domain. The woman was stunned. After being stunned, she chased to the edge of the cliff and shouted loudly, "Jiang Chen, come back. As long as you come back, I will wash and cook for you. As long as you come back, this will always be your home. You can stay here, I will stay with you forever." The hysterical sound instantly startled the white cranes on the cliff. And with the blessing of spiritual power, this voice traveled 100 miles. But her answer was, "Master, I am not afraid of death, but I am afraid of your death." The woman couldn't understand this. Although she didn't understand, she still squatted down, covered her face and cried bitterly. "Just cry. Why? Why are you so hopeless?" The woman looked up to the sky and roared as if she was crazy. Feeling sad and angry in her heart, she held the red whip and waved it with all her strength. With a whip, the red pavilion collapsed. 2 whips, the spiritual field cracked. With 3 whips, the spiritual pool collapsed, and the spiritual springs within it splashed everywhere. When everything calmed down, the originally beautiful home had cracks on the ground, cracks all over, and only the broken eaves and broken walls remained. The woman in red did not leave, but looked in the direction Jiang Chen left and stood there blankly. This station lasted for more than 10 days, during which she did not move at all. Until the heavy rain poured down, the thunder and lightning in the sky were like divine power, and the black clouds above the head were like a divine power that could not be disobeyed. She spoke again and murmured softly, why can't I be cruel? Boom! Thunder was like a dragon, falling from the sky and suddenly struck beside the woman. The lightning flashed, and instantly the earth collapsed and rocks shattered. Flying sand and rocks scattered, and actually passed through the woman's protection, leaving traces of blood on her fair cheek. This situation is like a woman saying something blasphemous to heaven and earth, and she is punished. This made Xuanhuan, who had been watching with cold eyes, tremble in his heart. This was the first time she felt pathetic. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 105. A few days later, only Xuanhuan and the mess were left on the top of the dangerous peak. Looking around, she felt an unprecedented pain in her heart. This was once her and Zhang Chen's home, but it was destroyed by her own hands. Her expression became numb again. Even though she was heartbroken and could hardly breathe, her facial features remained indifferent, except that tears would flow from her eyes, which looked extremely weird. She floated down the dangerous peak and came to the edge of the natural moat. She wanted to go to the upper domain, but no matter how hard she tried, she would be blown back by the cold wind in the moat. She did not give up and kept trying. Gradually. Perhaps it was the influence of the cold wind, or perhaps the phoenix blood was more serious. She seemed to have lost the ability to speak. She clearly wanted to raise her head and scream, and clearly wanted to beg the power that brought her here, begging for her to go find Zhang Chen. But in the end, no matter how hard she tried, she could only make a strange sound of oh. Only. Zhang Chen. She kept shouting. Whenever she called this name, she would reveal a strange and stiff smile. Hiding during the day and coming out at night, the seasons change. She had wandered in the heavy rain, and her red clothes were once covered by white snow. As spring went by and winter came, no matter how hot the sun was, she could only feel the biting cold. She still had a trace of rationality, but hallucinations became more frequent. I don't know since when, 2 boys with the same appearance appeared beside her. One boy was dressed in white, and his smile was like the dawn and dusk, refreshing. One boy was dressed in black, and although he was also smiling, his smile was full of vicissitudes and helplessness. "Master, do you believe in fate?" asked the boy in white. "Master, do you accept your fate?" asked the boy in black. She wanted to smile at the boy in white, but her smile was ugly. She wanted to hug the boy in black and cry, but her raised hands could only pass through the boy in black. No one noticed. At the edge of the natural moat leading to the upper domain, there was a woman who was already like a madman. Finally, one day, a familiar figure floated from the direction of the upper domain. Although she couldn't see his face clearly and his tears blurred his eyes, Xuanhuan could recognize him at a glance. That person was the one she had been waiting for many years. Zhang Chen's appearance made her sober again. She could laugh again and regained her ability to speak. Although her laugh was still a little ugly, she kept trying. Because she couldn't cry. Because Zhang Chen said that she didn't look good when she cried. As a master, she had always disappointed Zhang Chen. In this world, she couldn't change anything and didn't want to disappoint Zhang Chen anymore. Zhang Chen couldn't see her and walked on his own in front. She tried to follow him, her red clothes swaying, stumbling, and it seemed that she was struggling. Both of them were cultivators, but they walked slowly like mortals. They walked across the land, climbed mountains and rivers, and crossed thousands of rivers. Although Zhang Chen had never said a word since he reappeared, Xuanhuan didn't care. She just talked about some interesting things in the past, and then cried and laughed. She didn't know where Zhang Chen was going, but it didn't matter. Because this was the first time that she really waited for Jiang Chen. No matter where the destination was, she was willing to follow him even if it was hell. The two walked side by side, and this walk lasted for several years. Suddenly, Jiang Chen stopped. Puzzled, Xiao Hong'ai looked into the distance, and her pupils shrank slightly. Not far away, there was a dangerous peak that soared into the clouds. Unexpectedly, the two of them returned here in the end. The top of the dangerous peak was once her and Jiang Chen's home. But now, it has become a ruin. Her heart suddenly hurt. The two boys who had disappeared for a long time and looked the same appeared again. "Master, are we going home?" asked the boy in white. "Master, is there still a home there?" asked the boy in black. Guilt, self-blame, sin and other emotions made Xiao Hong'ai breathless. She clearly said that that was Jiang Chen's home. She clearly promised that if Jiang Chen had nowhere to go, he could go there and stay there for the rest of his life. But where is the home? The red jade pavilion had long since turned into broken eaves and broken walls, the spiritual pond had long since collapsed, and the spiritual field was already in a mess. Seeing Jiang Chen continue to move forward, as if he was going to the top of the dangerous peak, Xiao Hong'ai panicked. She couldn't imagine it. After many years, Jiang Chen came back again. If he saw the home that had become a ruin, how painful would his heart be? If Jiang Chen left again and went to the upper domain, wouldn't she be separated from him again? Xiao Hong'ai didn't want to disappoint Jiang Chen, especially this time, no matter what. She walked forward quickly, opened her arms, and blocked Jiang Chen's way. When she was about to say something, Jiang Chen passed through her body. She caught up with him again, and said in a voice that was almost begging, trying to smile, and continued. "Jiang Chen, don't go there, okay? Let's leave here, I'll accompany you wherever you want to go, okay? You don't have to talk, don't pay attention to me, as long as you are by my side. Jiang Chen, I was wrong. I was totally wrong, and the wrong offense is unforgivable. You can punish me in any way you want, just please don't go. Please, don't go." As Jiang Chen floated towards the top of the dangerous peak, her voice became softer and softer, and her sobbing became heavier. Jiang Chen walked away. Xiao Hong'ai smiled desperately and shouted at his back, "Jiang Chen, that is not home. It has never been. I lied to you. At the beginning, I just wanted to influence you, but in fact, even I never regarded it as home. Home. Actually, it doesn't matter where your home is, what matters is where you are," she said to herself again. The shouting had no effect, and Jiang Chen's figure almost disappeared from sight. She quickly caught up. "Do your best." The two of them landed on the top of the dangerous peak one after the other. She looked up and felt as if she had been struck by lightning. The red pavilion in front of me is intact as before, the Lington spring water is still sparkling, and there are still birds and animals playing in the Lingtian. Everything is back to how it was before, but something is different. Beside the Lington, there is an extra jade table. On the jade table, there is a brand new fishing rod and several spiritual fruits. Beside the jade table, a woman in red is sitting on a stool, holding a small spiritual sword and cruelly cutting the spiritual fruit in her hand. Sometimes the woman will look in the direction of the upper realm and let out a deep sigh. Xiao Hong'ai rubbed her eyes, then squatted on the ground like a child, crying loudly. This time I cried out of happiness. As a master, at least this time, she did not disappoint Jiang Chen. At least this time. Although she destroyed this and Jiang Chen's home with her own hands, she still rebuilt it. At least this time, she remembered her promise and guarded this place where Jiang Chen could be lazy. As a master, she finally didn't break her promise for once. Xiao Hong'ai didn't know how long she cried. Maybe it's a few hours, maybe it's a few days. The crying gradually stopped, and with a strong nasal voice, she looked to her side and said, "Zhang Chen." The sound stopped suddenly. She was stunned for a moment. She clearly came here with Zhang Chen, she clearly stood beside Zhang Chen, and she could still feel Zhang Chen's breath and temperature just a second ago. But at this moment, there is nothing around me. She thought she had finally waited for Zhang Chen, thought that walking through thousands of mountains and rivers with Zhang Chen, thought that was the happiest moment. But the truth is, the Zhang Chen who has always been by her side is also an illusion. In a trance, the young man in white appeared again, sitting cross-legged on the edge of the pool, fishing with a hanging rod. Wow! A huge spiritual fish was caught by him, and the boy in white smiled and said, "Ha ha, spiritual fish, if it falls into my hands, Zhang Chen, you will be master's dinner today." Xuanhuan burst into tears again. She quickly stepped forward, hugged the young man in white from behind, and kept apologizing and repenting. "Master, why are you crying?" the boy in white turned around and asked. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 106. Yeah, why am I crying again? Xuanhuan took a deep breath and tried to hold back her tears, because Zhang Chen didn't like it. But she couldn't do it. Not only could she not stop crying, she couldn't be strong. She had clearly decided that she must be strong, because Zhang Chen was still insisting, so she, as a master, couldn't collapse. But in reality, she didn't know how many times she had collapsed. And during the collapse, she would eventually return to the Red Jade Pavilion and instinctively look for Zhang Chen. Suddenly, she understood something. She knew that the white-clothed boy in her arms was an illusion again, but she still stroked the boy's cheek and spoke carefully. "Zhang Chen, I just know it now. The reason why I accepted you as my apprentice is because I feel lonely. I took the trouble to teach you because I don't want you to be disappointed in me as your master. I hope you will be kind and take care of your junior brothers and sisters. In fact, I want you to cherish everything you have. And all this, I never had before entering Julian section. Now I know that Phoenix blood-devouring heart will not produce hallucinations. You in front of me are just my weak pillar, just like a life-saving straw, which I hold tightly. Hey, Zhang Chen, do you know? In fact, as a master, I am very weak. I can't do anything except crying." "I know." The young man in white smiled and replied. The moment the voice fell, the figure of the young man in white gradually became illusory and turned into starlight and dissipated. Everything seemed to have never happened. But the last words of the young man in white made Xuanhuan stunned. She suddenly remembered the spiritual boat that returned from the Hongduan mountains. Thinking of Zhang Chen's meaningful words on the spiritual boat. "Master, don't you realize that you don't understand yourself? Really? It turns out that her eldest disciple has seen through her weakness. He has seen through it, but he still cooperates with her. So every time he is punished, he will keep playing miserable. And when she is sad, he will try his best to comfort her. All this is just to help her, the master, hide the weakness in his heart." Thinking of this, she cried again. She cried unscrupulously and without restraint. At this moment, she accepted her weakness and loosened the last straw. But the guilt, self-blame and other emotions that followed also completely crushed her. And this time, she never saw Zhang Chen as a teenager again. Ah! The red-clothed woman on the side put down the spiritual fruit in her hand and sighed again. Time flies, and several years have passed in the blink of an eye. The red pavilion on the top of the peak, beside the spiritual pond. 2 red-dressed figures were still there, One of them was constantly peeling spiritual fruits, his skills had become more and more mature. One of them was squatting by the spiritual pond, talking to himself, sometimes crying and sometimes laughing, and never leaving. Suddenly, boom! A burly figure fell from the sky. His body was like an iron tower, and the huge falling force instantly collapsed the ground. The burly man scratched his head and said, "I didn't control the strength well." The red-dressed woman who was peeling spiritual fruit saw this, frowned immediately, and said concisely, "Fix it." The burly man did not dare to refute, and jumped directly from the dangerous peak. When he turned back again, he carried a green boulder like a small mountain on his shoulder and placed it on the ground that he had collapsed. After that, another rockery was added to the top of the peak. "Master, I'm leaving after everything was done," the burly man said. "Where to?" The red-dressed woman did not even raise her head. "Recently, some memories that don't belong to me always appear in my mind. I want to go to the place in that memory to have a look. I think this is very important. Go early and come back early. Maybe I can't come back, because it seems that the place is not in this world." I said, "Go early and come back early." The burly man was silent, and then nodded seriously, "Okay, master's order, I dare not disobey." The woman in red also nodded and stopped talking. The burly man did not leave, but took a step forward, trying to take a spiritual fruit that the woman had just peeled. "Pa!" The woman directly hit his hand back. After a shy smile, the burly man said, "Master, Juyan sect has been a sect in the upper domain for many years, and it's almost time for you to leave here." The woman in red was silent. "Master, if you really want to see the eldest brother, why don't you go to the upper domain? Before coming here, I met the eldest brother by chance. He seems to have changed," the burly man said again. Hearing this, the woman trembled. She seemed to want to ask more questions, but she swallowed the words when they came to her lips. The burly man was not tactful and continued to talk to himself. "When I met the eldest brother, he was still doing evil. But I always feel that he doesn't look as annoying as before. More importantly, he is obviously doing evil, but I always feel a sense of disobedience, and I don't know why." After saying that, he added, "It may also be an illusion. After all, since those memories that don't belong to me appeared, I have been a little bit wrong." Seeing that the woman still didn't speak, the burly man turned around and prepared to leave. Just as he was about to jump off the dangerous peak again, he turned back and said, "Master, the eldest brother has issued a letter of challenge to the sixth junior brother, and they will fight to the death. I am not in a good state and don't want to watch. But if you don't go, you will regret it for the rest of your life." The red-clothed woman trembled again. After the burly man left, the woman was stunned by the jade table for a long time, and then seemed to have made a decision and left the place as well. After many years, Xuanhuan was the only one left here again. She woke up and was stunned. She didn't hear most of the conversation just now, but she heard the news about Zhang Chen very clearly. Declaration of war? Zhang Chen issued a declaration of war to Lin Feng, and it was a fight to the death? The thought had just come to her mind. Suddenly, the scene that had been silent for many years began to change again. Xuanhuan was still on the top of the dangerous peak in the previous second, but in the next second, she appeared in an unfamiliar open space. Above the open space, two figures intertwined with each other, and the sky was full of swords and swords. Around the open space, many righteous people gathered and cheered. Among these people, Xuanhuan saw her apprentice and herself. She didn't pay too much attention, but her eyes were firmly locked on the two figures fighting in the sky. Both of them were too fast. Even if she tried her best, she still couldn't see clearly. Suddenly, a figure was shot down from the sky, leaving a deep pit on the ground. Xuanhuan looked closely. The familiar facial features came into her eyes, making her unable to help herself. After many years, Zhang Chen had grown a stubble and his black hair had obviously grown longer. He was still dressed in white, but his eyes were more bitter and helpless. Xiao Hong'ai had no time to move forward. A black knife came quickly, twisting the void and shattering the earth wherever it went, aiming directly at Zhang Chen's chest. Time stopped at this moment, and a conversation emerged in Xiao Hong'ai's mind. Master, what if someone wants to kill me one day? If you are innocent, I will protect you with my life. After the conversation disappeared, she appeared in front of Zhang Chen with her arms open. She wanted to fulfill her promise and protect him with her life. But the black knife passed through her body and still pierced Zhang Chen's chest. In an instant, blood was everywhere, and the world was scarlet. Xiao Hong'ai turned her head stiffly. What she saw was the white clothes soaked in blood, and Zhang Chen, who was spitting blood and his vitality was quickly disappearing, but showed a relieved smile. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 107. No. Xiao Hong'ai shouted. The miserable sound was enough to make gods and Buddhas sigh, and the desperate eyes were enough to move the world. But no one heard or saw it. She knelt on the ground, trying to pick up Zhang Chen, but couldn't. She stretched out her hands, trying to pull out the black knife, but still couldn't. She kept wiping the blood stains on Zhang Chen's body, but still couldn't do it. She couldn't even die with Zhang Chen. She used the most vicious language to insult others until she was hoarse, then she lay on Zhang Chen's body, crying. Zhang Chen, wake up. I don't want you to be good, I don't want you to walk the right path. Let's go home, okay? Back to the home where only you and I are, back to the home isolated from the world. Why is it like this? It's obviously wrong, it's not you at all. It's obviously damned, it's not you. Suddenly, Zhang Chen was picked up by someone. Disciple, it was the master who didn't teach you well. The person cried so hard that his voice became hoarse. The person was quickly pulled away. Zhang Chen's lips opened and closed, as if he wanted to say something, and Xiao Hong'ai hurriedly leaned in to listen. Let them go. They. Who are they? At this time, Xiao Hong'ai thought she had understood the truth well enough, but she still heard incomprehensible words. But she didn't delve into it, because she could feel it. Her eldest disciple, the disciple who supported her weakness and accompanied her for more than 10 years, was gone. She roared angrily, her beautiful eyes full of hostility. She rushed towards Lin Feng, towards herself, and towards other disciples. She wanted to help Zhang Chen get revenge, but she could only miss again and fell to the ground. In an instant, flames soared into the sky and wrapped Zhang Chen's body. Her delicate body trembled, staggered forward, and crawled into the raging flames. Although she was in the flames, she could not feel any burning sensation. She could only watch Zhang Chen's body being gradually devoured by the flames and gradually dissipating. Why? Why are you so cruel? She raised her head and questioned the sky. The only answer she got was the sound of the raging fire. Why do you not distinguish between good and evil? Why should my apprentice suffer such injustice from you? She asked again. Still only the sound of the raging fire. She was desperate and no longer spoke. The pain in her heart was almost numb, which was a sign that the phoenix blood was completely devouring her heart. She didn't care, and she didn't even resist. Because at the moment when Zhang Chen's vitality completely disappeared, she also died. And the heartache at this moment, which seemed like 1,000 knives, was nothing compared to what Zhang Chen had experienced. In an instant, the severe pain disappeared. She stopped crying, stopped screaming, and her indifferent eyes were numb as never before. In her eyes at this moment, everything in the world has become black and white, only Zhang Chen's figure in the flames, which is still colorful. The whole world was as silent as death, except for the flames burning Jiang Chen's body, which were sizzling. She just stood there in a daze, with Jiang Chen's words in her mind. Master, don't stand up, you've always been in good shape. Master, why are you here? Master, do you believe in fate? Master! Master! After the flames faded, only ashes were left on the ground. She squatted down and stretched out her hands, wanting to help her apprentice collect the body. Still couldn't do it. At this moment, the only color in the world disappeared. She stood up and looked up at the sky like a puppet. She still had that peerless face, but only a soulless, empty body was left. I don't know how long it took. She seemed to have returned to the top of the dangerous peak again, and there was another thing next to the spiritual pond. From the appearance, it should be a tomb. And next to the tombstone, there was a woman who always accompanied her for 100 years. Another day. She seemed to see herself, Zhang Lianyu and others, dying under Lin Feng's butcher knife. Such a situation reminded her of Jiang Chen's figure floating away in front of the red pavilion. Master, I am not afraid of death, but I am afraid of your death. She remembered the scene of being hugged tightly by Jiang Chen in front of the wall-facing monument. Master, no matter 100 years or 1,000 years. No matter what happens in the future, no matter how disappointed you are with me. I just want to say. If one day, I no longer exist in this world. If one day, you find yourself alone. If one day, you wake up from grief and anger. Please remember the sentence from your disciple. I will not let you die. Never. Even if you will hate me for it. She remembered Jiang Chen's words before he died. Let them go. At this moment, she understood everything. It turned out that Jiang Chen had always wanted to save her. It turned out that the reason why Jiang Chen was unwilling to stay in the Red Pavilion and accompany her until old age was because he knew that Lin Feng would kill women to prove his way and could not escape. It turned out that her apprentice had been thinking about everyone except himself. Click. The world suddenly closed, and darkness and nothingness enveloped it. She still stood still, her beautiful eyes were empty, without any fluctuations. Soon, the sunlight displayer dispersed the darkness, and she returned to the familiar place. She glanced at the sky. Second life. This should have been a golden word, but it was still gray and white, just like the world in front of her. Her expression was still numb and indifferent. Cannot laugh, cry, or even speak. Suddenly, her pupils shrank, and she found that the colors were gathering on the boy who was fishing by the pond. Master, do you believe in fate? The white-clothed boy asked again. The woman still didn't know how to reply. But this time, the boy just sighed and didn't say any more bold words. He didn't even ask other questions, just stared at the empty space by the spiritual pond in a daze. Xuanhuan, I remembered. At the end of the last life, there was a grave there. Although she still couldn't feel any emotions, she forced her body forward and sat down next to the boy. Plop, plop. She looked at the boy in a daze and felt her heart beat again. She raised her hand to touch the boy's side face, and a flash of light flashed in her empty eyes. Then, she suddenly smiled. With this smile, the colors on the boy's body spread around, covering the world in an instant. She came alive again. Disciple, live for yourself in this life. I am not afraid of death, but I am afraid of your death, she persuaded softly. The boy naturally did not respond. Please. She said again. The boy remained silent. After a long time, the boy suddenly turned his head and asked the woman in red behind him, Master, if one day I die, what will you do? If you are innocent, I will not let you die, but if you are guilty. The woman next to him frowned and thought deeply. What if you are guilty? Master has not thought about it. Master has not thought about it, but I know what you will do. Oh. Then tell me. You will guard my tomb for 100 years. You wish. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 108. Xuanhuan noticed it quickly. Although this is his second life, Zhang Chen doesn't seem to have any intention of giving up. And from Zhang Chen's still shining eyes, she even had a feeling that this second life might not be the last. As she expected. The plot of the second life is still developing in the same direction. Compared to the first life, Zhang Chen's resistance was more intense and he tried his best. But the stronger his resistance, the stronger the suppression. He tried to avoid various misunderstandings and coincidences in the first life, but many plots were unavoidable. Even if he manages to avoid some unimportant misunderstandings, there will be new coincidences and evil deeds. He even wanted to tell the truth about the world, but when the words came to his lips, he seemed to have violated some taboo and instantly lost the ability to speak. In this life, he was still deprived of Yuan Dan and expelled from the section. Zhenglan was recovering from his injuries in the Red Jade Attic, and eventually died under Lin Feng's knife. Third world. Fourth life. Fifth life. Eighth life. The same ending, repeated over and over again. In this life, the light in Zhang Chen's eyes has begun to dim, and his smile has become extremely forced. At the same time, he became impatient. In this life, he no longer hopes to change the opinions of the people around him, but plans to use the power of the Zhang family to kill Lin Feng in one fell swoop before he can become a disciple of the Juyan sect. But at the moment when Lin Feng was about to die, the dynasty came. The goal was not achieved, but it accelerated the destruction of the Zhang family. Also starting from this life, God seems to have lost his temper. Whenever Zhang Chen made a big mistake and was punished, there would always be heavy rain and thunder in the sky. And at the moment of his death, the spiritual rain, set off by the flames, was even more like a rain of blood. God seemed to be roaring and going crazy. Seemingly puzzled, he asked, "You aunt, why do you want to resist destiny?" When Zhang Chen came to the end, Xuanhuan was still standing at the place where Zhang Chen died, still only a shell. In these few lives, she begged over and over again, begging Zhang Chen to give up, begging Zhang Chen to be a bad person. But even though his heart was riddled with holes, even if he would fall into the same abyss every life, Zhang Chen still didn't give up. In these past few lives, she was still searching for Zhang Chen, but she no longer had hallucinations as a life-saving straw. More lonely and tortured. She can feel heartache, guilt, self-blame, and deep longing more clearly. At the end of each life, she will be completely devoured by the phoenix blood, and the world will turn into black and white. But at the beginning of every life, as long as she sees Zhang Chen, her world will regain its glory again. It goes round and round with no end in sight. Xuanhuan herself couldn't remember how many times she had collapsed, and how many times she had been so heartbroken that she was numb. But she knew it. Compared with the pain Zhang Chen suffered, she was nothing compared to the unexpected. This world should be destroyed. At the end of the 8th life, Xuanhuan stood beside Zhang Chen's tombstone, muttering expressionlessly. It was obvious that at this moment, her heart had been completely eaten by the phoenix blood, and she should have lost the ability to speak, but she still said these words without any pause. 9th life. It's still the top of the dangerous peak, in front of the Ruby Pavilion. The young apprentice is still fishing, with the woman in red standing behind him. The boy in white clothes was still the only color in Xuanhuan's eyes. She instinctively came to Zhang Chen's side, just like searching for the only warmth in the cold winter. But this time, however, her world did not regain its color again with Zhang Chen's appearance. Because the young man in white in front of him was silent. That clean smile has almost completely faded away, leaving only vicissitudes of life and helplessness. "Zhang Chen, what's bothering you?" the woman behind the young man asked. The young man was silent. If you encounter difficulties, you might as well speak up, the woman said again. Master, the young man finally shouted. Am I not taking the right path and doing good deeds? I feel like I can't hold on anymore, and I want to accept my fate. When saying this, the young man buried his head. His tone was unwilling and bitter. His body was shaking and his teeth were clenched. There were obvious tears in his black eyes. The young man wanted to restrain himself, but he couldn't. Finally, tears burst into my eyes, and the grievances, helplessness, and bitterness of several lifetimes were all poured out at this moment. Seeing such a situation, Xuanhuan also burst into tears. She wanted to hold Zhang Chen tightly, but she couldn't. She wanted to wipe the tear stains on Zhang Chen's cheeks, but she still couldn't. She could only squat beside Zhang Chen, burst into tears, and continued. Disciple, it's master's fault. I shouldn't let you do good, I shouldn't let you follow the right path. You don't have to insist anymore, you can accept your fate, you can be a bad person. Whether you are good or bad, whether you follow the heavens or defy the heavens, whether you are righteous or evil, you are my disciple, Xuanhuan. You and I, master and disciple, are of the same mind, and we will never give up. Although she felt distressed, she was also a little happy. Because if Zhang Chen really gives up, it won't be so painful anymore. If all this is the price of being good, then she would rather her apprentice always be a heinous villain. Ken. The woman from behind stepped forward, hugged Zhang Chen who was crying, and said with a distressed look on her face, Zhang Chen, don't lose your heart for good. No one is born a bad person. If you persist, I believe you will be able to change your mind. After these words, the young man fell silent again. Xuanhuan's beautiful eyes widened, and a monstrous anger appeared in her eyes. She rushed towards herself in the picture, with her teeth and claws bared, and her expression was like a bite. She was extremely crazy and kept screaming at herself. Xuanhuan, you are not worthy of being a teacher, not worthy of being a human being. Why are you so persistent in being kind? Is it because this is the teaching of Grandpa, the teaching of the ancestor? Grandpa wants to be kind, you let him go by himself. The ancestor wants to follow the right path, you let him crawl out of the coffin and walk by himself. Don't you have any brains, no ideas of your own? Open your eyes and see what the apprentice in your arms has been tortured into. Why are you so stupid? Why am I so stupid? The voice became lower and lower, and after shouting hoarsely, Xuanhuan had collapsed on the ground, buried her head and cried. She grew up on this dangerous peak since she was a child. Grandpa often came to tell her that only by doing good can she be respected and loved, and not be alone. The ancestor often chatted with her through voice transmission, boasting about how he cleared the demons, defeated the invasion of other worlds, and protected the people of this world. The Xiao family is a big family of the righteous way, the Julian sect is a big sect of the righteous way, and I, your ancestor, am a model of the righteous way. When you grow up, you must not embarrass me, your ancestor. The words of the ancestor are still fresh in my memory. Once, Xuanhuan always used this sentence to motivate herself. But at this moment, she roared to the sky and cursed directly, Ancestor! Why don't you die? Are you still a model of the righteous way? A model who hides in a coffin and waits to die? As soon as these words came out, the sky seemed to be full of question marks. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 109. Zhang Chen listened to his master's words and still gritted his teeth and persisted in this life. The same thing is that he is still misunderstood. The difference is that he will no longer explain. The phoenix blood has repeatedly eaten his heart, and it is irreversible. Although Xuanhuan can still speak and still have consciousness, she will cry and laugh when it comes to Zhang Chen. But in her eyes, only Zhang Chen is still colorful. When facing other people, her facial features are indifferent and her eyes are numb, just like a body without a soul. The familiar plot is repeated again, and Zhang Chen is expelled from the sect again. And Xuanhuan, once again embarked on the road to find Zhang Chen. She no longer goes to the Hongyu Pavilion. Since she can't go to the upper domain, she can only wander around like a lonely ghost in places where Zhang Chen may appear. After searching for several lives, she is also constantly gaining experience. In previous lives, in order to find Zhang Chen, she would go to the place where Zhang Chen might appear in advance, but even if the two were close, they could only miss each other repeatedly and could never meet. Xuanhuan knew that the power in the dark was still punishing her. Although she was almost going crazy with longing and she collapsed frequently, she never gave up and didn't want to give up. Looking for Zhang Chen seemed to have become her instinct. Only on the road of searching could she feel that she was still alive. Hongduan Mountains. After searching for several lifetimes, she was very familiar with this place. As early as in previous lifetimes, she learned from other cultivators that Zhang Chen would appear here and do evil with a three-tailed white fox. She passed through the dense forest, floated over the mountains, and appeared in every corner of the Hongduan Mountains. As a result, she still didn't find the person she missed. Calculating the time, she prepared to go to the Ghost Ridge Soul Abyss. But just as she was about to leave the deepest part of the Hongduan Mountains, a conversation came from the dense forest in front. Xuanhuan, you should be promoted to the Demon King, right? Well, I don't know why, I'm a little scared. Don't be afraid, I'm used to it. What are you used to? Nothing, I'm almost leaving. Leave? Where are you going? When I become the Demon King, I can leave here and we can go together. Xuanhuan, this may be the last time. But I still want to remind you not to have the surname Bai, because the surname Bai will make you stupid. I have a name, why should I have the surname Bai? You will forget it even if I tell you, take care. Zhang Chen, come back. As the last shout fell, a man in white appeared from the dense forest in front and passed by Xuanhuan's eyes. Although it was just a quick glance, Xuanhuan still cried with joy. The ninth life. She finally found her apprentice. Not daring to delay, she hurriedly caught up. She followed Zhang Chen out of the Hongduan Mountains and went elsewhere. During this time, she kept circling Zhang Chen, poking his cheek with her slender fingers from time to time, and then smiled like a fool. Although there was no touch, she felt that Zhang Chen in front of her was more real than ever before. The two walked together, and their footprints covered every corner of the central region. Ghost Ridge Soul Abyss. Xuanhuan wanted to fight with the female ghost, but she couldn't see her at all. Danggu Tower. Zhang Chen sneaked in quietly, and she had nothing to do, so she wrote down all the alchemy secrets of Danggu Tower. Soon, under Zhang Chen's intention to make an enemy, 5 masters of the 7 Yao Sword Pavilion arrived. During the battle, she was like a little fangirl, waving flags and shouting on the side. When Lin Feng and others appeared and defeated Zhang Chen, she began to think about how to kill this child of destiny. Then, Zhang Chen blew up his own spirit sword and fled. The speed was too fast, and Xuanhuan tried her best to finally catch up. Finally, the two landed on a dangerous peak thousands of miles away, and in front of them were still the Red Jade Pavilion, the Spirit Pond, and the Spirit Field. 9 Reincarnations. Since Zhang Chen was expelled from the sect, this was the only place where Xuanhuan could see Zhang Chen until the end. After arriving here, Zhang Chen was already seriously injured and extremely weak. but he did not enter the red jade pavilion, but stood on the edge of the cliff, looking into the distance. "What are you looking at?" Xuanhuan was puzzled and looked at it as well. Soon, she understood something. Because that was the direction of the Wandao demon sect. In previous lives, Zhang Chen and the Qiyao Sword Pavilion had a feud because the demon sect which kidnapped the Sword Pavilion sword girl and wanted to make her his concubine. In this life, Zhang Chen took the initiative to make an enemy, and not only that, he was also deliberately avoiding all places where the witch might appear. Xuanhuan believed that Zhang Chen should want to make a deal with this god. In the 9 reincarnations of Zhang Chen, this was the only time he took the initiative to promote the plot and do evil things. His purpose was to prevent the witch from appearing and dying for him. He knew it very well. In the 9 reincarnations, he didn't owe anyone anything except the witch. And if he wanted to save the witch, he had to stay away. Because the witch didn't die because of Lin Feng, but because of him. Maybe the heavens were a little annoyed, or as long as Lin Feng wasn't involved and the plot wasn't changed, the life and death of the witch didn't matter at all. In the 9th life, the witch really didn't appear and didn't die tragically. This was also the only person Zhang Chen saved in the 9 reincarnations. In the previous lives, I always hoped that she would be good and wanted to avoid her death in this way, but the result was always the same. I should have understood that I was the culprit who killed her. Zhang Chen sighed bitterly before going to the upper domain. The 9th life ended with the same ending. Once again, Xuanhuan was still heartbroken, still broke down and cried, and attacked others like crazy. As expected. No matter how many times she experienced it, she could not accept Zhang Chen's death calmly. The 10th life. Xuanhuan returned to the place where she started. On the top of the dangerous peak, in front of the Hongyu Pavilion, the boy was still fishing with a rod, and the woman was still standing behind him. The scene was the same as before, but the boy had changed into a black dress. Seeing that the boy in black was absent-minded and his mind was not on fishing at all, the woman behind him frowned. She walked forward slowly, tapped the boy's forehead, and said with a strict teacher, "Zhang Chen, fishing can cultivate your character and patience. If your heart is not right, then your path is not right. If you lack patience, you will like to take shortcuts." From ancient times to the present, those who have been possessed by demons, without exception, want to take shortcuts. You want to stop. Stop. The black-clothed boy put his hands on his pillow after dropping the pole and asked, "Master, can you fish?" "Dang." The woman replied in seconds. "Masters cannot lie," the boy interrupted. "Okay." The woman looked a little embarrassed and whispered, "When I was a child, my grandfather taught me the same thing, but I tried and couldn't catch any fish." "Then master, have you ever seen the great elder fishing?" the boy asked again. It seems not." "Master, have you ever seen the ancestor fishing?" "No, I haven't either." "Master, this is very unreasonable." The young man stood up and shook his head and said, "I have heard that the Grand Elder was taught by the Grand Elder himself, and you were taught by the Grand Elder, but in the end, neither of you fished. What does this prove? Think about it carefully." "You mean?" The woman frowned, and spoke after a while, "We are fooling one generation after another? Fishing can cultivate character, but it is actually fake. I don't know if it's fake, but how can the apprentice be asked to learn something that the master doesn't know? Master, think about this carefully." "I understand," the woman suddenly realized, and her expression became firm. "You go and take a rest, and I will teach you when I learn to fish." After that, the woman picked up the fishing rod on the ground and started fishing. She sat by the pond, holding the lifting rod tightly with both hands, and stared at the spiritual pond with a pair of beautiful eyes, without blinking for a long time. This lasted for a full hour. Suddenly, the spiritual pond splashed with waves. "Zhang Chen, master has caught fish." Come quickly, the woman jumped up excitedly and quickly reeled in the rod. Then, fishing in vain, nothing. Seeing this, he could lie on the reclining chair. Jiang Chen turned over lazily, picked up a spiritual fruit with almost only the core left on the wooden table beside him, took 2 bites, and then said, "Master, fishing can cultivate patience, not impatience. Throughout the ages, those who have been possessed by demons are too impatient, so they have gone astray. Don't make a mistake. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil." Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 110. When she learned that Jiang Chen had given up and was determined to be a complete villain, the 10th life came to an abrupt end. Xuanhuan was still looking up at the sky. It was sunset at this moment, and the sunset was blood red. She still had an indifferent and numb expression. It took her a long time to realize that she had returned to reality. Her beautiful eyes were still empty, but 2 lines of tears slid down her fair cheeks and wet the red clothes on her shoulders. Julian sect. When she first entered here, she was more excited than ever. Here are her grandfather, ancestors, and many fellow brothers and sisters. She also regarded this as her home. Zhifeng. When she first became the master of the peak, she decided in her heart that she would treat everyone in Zhifeng as her family. Because she is Xuanhuan, a person who looks strong but is always weak and afraid of loneliness. This place was also her harbor and her home. But at this moment, this Julian sect is more dazzling than ever before. In every corner of the Zhifeng, Jiang Chen is misunderstood and tortured. The Zhifeng elders and disciples whom she once regarded as her family have become hideous at this moment. In the 9 reincarnations, these people, including herself, have hurt Jiang Chen too deeply. Time and again, until Jiang Chen's eyes are dull. One knife after another, until the heart of her eldest disciple is pierced with thousands of holes. As a master, she is the main culprit and her crime is unforgivable. The guilt, self-blame, and sin that followed made her want to run to Jiang Chen immediately and commit suicide to apologize. But, this can't be done. She is a sinner. Jiang Chen saved her for 9 lifetimes, and she hurt Jiang Chen for 9 lifetimes. Committing suicide is just the simplest way to get rid of it. "I won't die, I will accompany you forever," she murmured. Looking in the direction of Xiaofeng, her eyes were filled with monstrous anger again. For 9,000 lives, she had been helplessly repenting, begging for a bystander, unable to change anything. She would never experience that feeling of powerlessness again. "Whoever touches you in this life will die," Xuanhuan said with murderous intent. As soon as these words fell, her already eye-catching red clothes actually rose with phoenix fire. The phoenix fire, which was even more red, seemed to have life, entwined around her, sometimes gathering, sometimes scattering, as if outlining something. Then, cry. The female phoenix phantom, several feet high, was made of phoenix fire, like a phoenix bathing in fire, and the moment it spread its wings, the phoenix cried for 9 days. At the same time, the phoenix fire changed again. It became as red as blood, and the scorching temperature was even higher, as if it could burn the sky and destroy the earth, and the firelight illuminated the sky for hundreds of miles. Boom! As the phoenix cry fell, a pressure like the power of heaven burst out from her body, instantly covering the entire Julian sect. In an instant, the peaks of Julian sect trembled, and the huge bells on them rang at the same time. Dong! Dong! The bells continued to ring, one after another, and countless sound waves were shaken. When everything calmed down, the entire Julian sect was shrouded in 7-color divine light. This sect formation that would only be activated during a sect war seemed to have sensed the threat and opened itself at this time. And in front of the Zhifeng Yongxiao Palace, a woman in red was still standing in the same place, but the 2 lines of tears on her face had unknowingly turned into blood and tears. They were flowing from her eyes. Phoenix weeps blood, Phoenix cries for 9 days. Seeing this, the two Zhifeng elders not far behind were shocked and trembling all over. They had only seen such a situation in books. It is said that if a person with phoenix blood is fully activated, such a strange phenomenon of heaven and earth will appear. But the problem is, Xuanhuan is an acquired phoenix body, and what is integrated is ordinary phoenix blood. There is only one way for ordinary phoenix blood to activate the phoenix body like blood essence. Burn blood. The consequence of this is that one will completely become a phoenix blood container, lose oneself, and act only on instinct. Unless one day, ordinary phoenix blood can be refined into blood essence by itself, otherwise, although alive, he is already dead. The elder of the 9 peaks is named Lu Yang. At this moment, he was already in tears, beating his chest and stamping his feet and said, "Peak Master, why is this happening?" Xuanhuan didn't seem to hear it, or maybe she heard it but didn't want to pay attention. She tapped the ground with her toes, and the phoenix phantom spread its wings for several feet, and turned into flames and went to the first peak. "Peak Master, what are you going for?" Lu Yang asked loudly. The answer to him was still silence. Another elder wiped his tears and replied, "The Peak Master is going to overturn the first peak and save her apprentice." She knew that the Supreme Elder would stop her, so she burned the phoenix blood. Save the apprentice? Is it the eldest disciple Zhang Chen, or the 3 crazy people like Zhang Lianyu? Or, should they save them together? Lu Yang couldn't figure it out. In his opinion, although Xuanhuan favored Zhang Chen, she wouldn't be so partial. But if she wanted to save Zhang Lianyu and others, it didn't seem necessary to make such a big scene. The only thing he was sure of was, Xuanhuan might never come back after this trip. "Ring the bell, summon all the disciples of Zhifeng," Lu Yang said after taking a deep breath. "Why?" Another elder was puzzled. "To save the Peak Master and Zhifeng." Lu Yang was desperate and gritted his teeth and said, "Although the Peak Master is the legitimate daughter of the Xiao family, this trip will really stir up internal fighting in the section according to the sect rules. This is an unforgivable crime. Zhifeng has lost its Peak Master and true teachings. Are we going to other peaks to rely on others?" After taking a deep breath, his eyes became more resolute, and he asked loudly, "The Peak Master treats you and me, and the disciples of the 9 peaks well. This is a critical moment for the 9 peaks, and as the saying goes, the law does not punish the masses. Do you want to hide here, sigh and be an ungrateful person? Or do you want to go with the Peak Master and overthrow the first peak? No matter what the result is, you will have no regrets." "Of course I will go together. If it weren't for the Peak Master, I would have died in the hands of my enemies. It's time to repay this favor." "But," another elder replied in seconds, and then changed the subject, "just to call on the disciples of the 9 peaks, there must be a high-sounding banner, right? After all, this is a matter of life and death." LV Yang thought it made sense. But for a moment, he really couldn't think of a reason. Zhang Lianyu and others rushed to the first peak to save Zhang Chen. The 3 of them were crazy, and even if there was no reason, the others would not hold on to them. Xuanhuan went there to save her apprentice, no matter which apprentice she saved, but it was justified. But what about them and all the disciples of Zhifeng? Save Zhang Chen? Funny, right? Everyone in Zhifeng complained about Zhang Chen? Save Zhang Lianyu and others. This reason is also untenable. After all, the 3 of them have gone crazy and have not caused serious consequences. Logically, they will not be severely punished. Save Xuanhuan. This reason is even more ridiculous. After all, Xuanhuan is not in trouble yet. "This time, I went to save Lulin," Lu Yang said after some thought. "Lulin? Who is Lulin?" Another elder was confused. How do I know who it is? Liu Yang glared. When he came to me to complain, I only asked his name. I was so angry that I couldn't even remember his appearance. But this person should be a new errand disciple of Zhe Feng, and he was also taken to Xiaofeng. So that's it? Saving this person is just an excuse. If other disciples know about it, even if he is an errand disciple, Zhe Feng will still stand up for him. They will be excited and move forward. It's good to understand. There is no time to lose, act quickly. Okay. Grab your weapons, save Lulin, and take down Xiaofeng.